Okay, today I'm going to be listening to Partiels by Grisey. It's a piece from 1975 for chamber orchestra, and it's the most famous piece by Gerard Grisey. Probably also the most famous piece of the French spectral movement. And it is for chamber orchestra, which I think is very interesting. I can't think of a lot of composers whose most famous work is for chamber orchestra, but Grisey is one of them. The specific ensemble is 2130, 2010, two percussions, accordion, and then 11211 for the strings. So, and the flutes both double on piccolo. The oboist doubles on English horn. First clarinet doubles on E flat. Second clarinet doubles on A. The third clarinet is bass clarinet doubling on contrabass clarinet. And the accordion needs to have a chromatic bass. The trombone needs to have an assortment of mutes: plunger, ball, Robinson, wah wah, and velvet. The percussion list is vibe, glock, gong on a low E, tam tam, cymbal, a pair of cymbals you crash together, three snare drums, I think, two tabors, three different sizes of tom, bass drum, and two other drums. Some of the accessories, mutes for the toms, and some polystyrene paper. Some polystyrene plaques, some paper, some metallic paper. The crumpling paper stuff is towards the end of the piece. Yeah, that's that. So some interesting things about the ensemble. I think it's really interesting that there's an extra viola. This is likely because in this piece, to put it in context, is part of a series of pieces called Les Espaces Acoustiques, and the first movement of that series is a solo viola piece. So continuing the trend, there is more viola than you would expect in this ensemble. Trombone is kind of the big standout instrument, which could be why there's no trumpet to compete with it. So the only other brass is conical brass, two horns. And you'll see very quickly that the trombone is the focus of this piece. So I think that's sort of accounts for the tweaking of the standard ensemble here. So this is like erratically changing dynamics, which can be controlled by decrescendos and crescendi, where you would over time change the upper and lower bounds of this randomness. And he has quarter tone accidentals. In this piece he uses all quarter tone sharps and six tone sharps, and imperceptible attack symbol. He has different accelerando, decelerando, grace note things. The durations of notes you'll see are with horizontal lines, which bears visual similarity to a spectrogram, which is kind of the spoilers point of the piece. Is this opening gesture is like the spectrogram of a trombone note. Sort of hallmark of spectral music is the imitation of electroacoustic technologies and techniques, but with acoustic instruments. And this is like a textbook example. You got this low E, which the trombone is playing, but also the double bass is playing, and then these, if you slow down a trombone's note and look at the spectra, the entrances of the spectra are a bit delayed, and the upper harmonics come in before some of the lower ones, and that's sort of like typical of brass instruments. It's what gives brass their timbre. So that's what's going on here. This is like a super slowed down trombone note, and you can find lots of, I mean, not lots of essays, but a fair bit of research has just been on what is the significance of this, what does it mean for the spectral movement, that sort of thing. What I think is interesting is this phrase repeats over and over again, so it really cements itself in your mind before the piece continues, and then you get the same gesture but slightly different every time, right? Grisey starts to play with the number of partials that come in, when they come in, which come first, which come later, and you can see the sort of shape of it changes from page to page. And that's eventually things start to get more and more dissonant and inharmonic, you could say. They get further away from this ideal trombone sound, and that's how the piece starts to progress. Another thing you might find fun is at the very end we have this crumpling paper idea, where different ensemble members have pieces of paper, but the very last thing you see on stage is one of the percussionists, percussion 1, taking a pair of cymbals and slowly opening them until they rest. And the next piece in the series, Les Espaces, starts with a cymbal crash. So this really encourages you to play both pieces back to back in concert, because if you don't, you just have to awkwardly hold this until either people start applauding or the percussionist just gives up and then people start applauding. But this little guy, who's very happy to be doing this, definitely communicates the playfulness of spectralism. A lot of people forget that it is definitely a movement with a sense of humor and a little bit not transgressive, but it's trying to do something different and push people, and it's saying that modern music needs to change to reflect like modern technology. So that's sort of the statement. And if you can get your hands on this score, I highly recommend it, because it is really a beautiful handwritten score. And if you take a survey course of contemporary music, you're probably going to have to listen to this anyways, because it's just that big of a piece. Hopefully your teacher makes you listen to the whole thing and not just this first page. But you can always take the time now to click the link in the video description and listen to it along with me. I'll see you in a bit, and I'll let you know my thoughts hearing it this time.
Yeah. I really liked this last section. I guess in the past I haven't appreciated it so much, but it really is a very long section from this sort of climax where everybody's doing these tremolos to the end, where things just get progressively slower. The tremolos turn into like little dips in pitch, and those turn into like really long glissandi, um, still small in terms of like the pitch deviation, but like so slow. And that sort of like exponential shift in perspective is very uh, like really symbolizes electronic music to me. Like if you ever play with a analog synth and explore just like the range of an oscillator into the low frequencies and what it can do, you get these very like dramatic, like exponential changes in gesture, which um, are a little bit foreign to acoustic music, and it's just really cool to see. And the introduction of this high frequency noise, like people whispering and paper crumpling, and um, it as everything is getting to its extreme low register, I think is really cool. It kind of reminds me of like when you take a recording and you pitch shift it down far enough. Sometimes there's like stuff that's so high it's inaudible in the like above 12,000 hertz range. Then once you keep shifting it down, it actually becomes audible, and you get like noise and static up there, and it's like there is something surreal about it, like there's people whispering suddenly and speech, but also there's this idea of like the ceiling of what you can hear has lowered, and yeah, I just think it's very theatrical and cool, and I could talk more about other sections of the piece, but I think it's all um, so iconic and it's been talked about to death. So um, if you liked a particular section, feel free to comment. Compared to the previous piece, Periode, I think this is more dramatic and noisy, and the gestures are a bit bigger in general. And not just because the ensemble's bigger, I think the gestures are actually um, taking up more space in the piece and going more extreme with things. And so, in the scope of the whole, like, Les Espaces, I think it's a nice um, climactic moment. Um, Once you've got into Partiels, it is really powerful. So, um, yeah, that's all I have to say about this one.